Good afternoon. The special meeting of the Richmond City Council will now come to order. Mr. Clerk, please provide the chamber emergency evacuation plan and Spanish interpretation announcements.
Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed down 9th Street and enter the assembly area located in the former Public Safety Building parking lot. Able persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Spanish interpretation is available in the council chamber. Please see a representative in the back of the room to receive the appropriate equipment. And Spanish interpretation is also available through Microsoft Teams for virtual attendees in need of this service.
Thank you.
Disponemos de servicio de interpretación aquí en la sala del consejo. Por favor, diríjase atrás para ver el representante y obtener asistencia. Esta interpretación y esta sesión todavía está representada vía Teams para nuestros miembros de la comunidad que están viendo esta sesión virtualmente.
And Madam President, for the record, all members of council are in attendance this afternoon with the exception of Councilor Breton, Councilor Lynch, and Councilor Trammell. You do have a quorum.
And individuals standing in the rear of the chamber at this time are asked to be seated where seats are available. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now welcome our mayor, Dr. Daniel Bullard, to present the city's proposed fiscal year 2026 budget. Welcome, Mayor.
Good afternoon, President Newbill, Vice President Jordan, members of City Council, city staff, and most importantly, Richmonders. To everyone here in attendance or watching online, thank you for your interest in and your excitement for the future of our city. We have so much to be excited about. We were ranked the top American town to visit by CNN. We have an absolutely amazing food scene. Every week, we see more progress on Carmack's Park and dream about the next chapter of baseball in Richmond. The Allianz Amphitheater at Riverfront is nearing completion, and it will be spectacular. We have a world-class arts community, and just last year, we were ranked #2 in the country for cities with the best street art. And of course, we have more festivals than can possibly fit on any of your calendars. Now, top-notch entertainment is nice and national accolades are nice because they tell everybody outside of Richmond what we already know. But what really excites me, what I am really proud of, every day, together, we are moving towards our vision of a healthy and thriving city with abundant opportunity where everyone's rights are protected and where no one is left behind. And an effective city government that stewards resources, meets community needs, and earns the trust of its residents. These are the themes that I heard repeatedly when talking to residents last year on the campaign trail, and I imagine many of you on council who also ran heard many of the same things as well. It's the work that I feel called to do, and I imagine it's a big part of why we are all here. For these themes and these priorities to be more than just vision and aspiration, they've got to be translated into concrete action and investments. That's our work. And so my team and I have built a balanced $3 billion budget that reflects our shared priorities and does not raise taxes. It reflects our shared vision of an effective city government that carefully and thoughtfully stewards resources, investing in core services and essential community needs, our schools, housing, neighborhoods, public safety, and the effective delivery of services that our residents expect and deserve. The work to build a budget is a year-round effort, with the most intense work typically beginning in August, providing a long runway for planning and development. I took office in January, just as some of the members of council did, and so my involvement in this year's budget process has been extremely compressed. Budgets are always an exercise in compromise. Needs almost always exceed resources. Our budget is always limited by the city's geographic and historic challenges. But this year, we are building the budget at a time when we as a city face government, our budget is required to be balanced. And so every expenditure has to have the revenue to pay for it. Closing that gap has taken considerable effort from our dedicated team, and I'd like to thank our interim CEO, Sabrina Joy Hogg, our Director of Budget and Strategic Planning, Megan Brown, and her budget team, and so many staff members whose hard work helped us meet our obligation to deliver a balanced budget. So how do we get here? To build this balanced budget, we've had to address some challenges that are facing cities across the country and some challenges that are unique to Richmond. Fundamentally, we are extremely constrained in our ability to expand our real estate tax base. The entire city of Richmond is contained in about 62 square miles, basically an 8-mile by 8-mile box, which is tiny in comparison to our regional neighbors. Property taxes from that tiny box are our single largest source of revenue. But contained within that 62 square miles, we have a significant share of tax-exempt property. In fact, Richmond has more tax-exempt real estate than any locality in our region. And as Virginia's capital, we host a significant number of state-owned buildings, universities like VCU, and nonprofits like hospitals, churches, and museums. Our tax-exempt properties are 2 to 5 times that of our neighboring counties of Chesterfield, Hanover, and Henrico. We miss out on about $63 million a year in annual revenue because of the amount of state and federal government-owned tax-exempt property in our city. Again, not being able to collect taxes on what is some of the most valuable property in the city dramatically limits our revenue-generating capacity. I'm a proud VCU alum. I recognize the enormous tangible and intangible impact of our colleges and universities, including VCU, but these are the facts about our limited tax base. Richmond is also an older city with aging infrastructure impacted by years of insufficient and deferred investment. I know that now, more than ever, we are committed to the investments that are required to repair and replace our critical infrastructure. Our schools also need critical investments as the city takes on greater responsibility to offset inadequate funding from the state. According to the state's own legislative watchdog agency, JLARC, Virginia school divisions receive 14% less funding per student than the 50 state average. And there are also unsettling signs from Washington, where a new federal administration is creating uncertainty by slashing federal jobs and upending traditional operations. Changes to the federal landscape could have serious fiscal implications for the Commonwealth and to our city. Our region is home to over 30,000 federal workers and many firms that contract with the government and many organizations that are federal grant recipients that support social services, like nonprofits that support the unhoused, as one example. Finally, layered on all of that are the broader economic conditions that affect households, businesses, and even local governments. You all have felt the effect of inflationary pressures causing prices to surge for groceries and other retail items. And those same pressures apply to the goods and services that we are acquiring as the city. In other words, rising costs affect households and local governments alike. But even in the face of these challenges, our responsibility remains the same: to see our way to an effective and efficient city hall and a healthy and thriving city. This is our calling, and this is how we're going to do it. To deliver a phenomenal customer service experience, we must attract and then retain qualified, talented team members. So we've invested in staff by transitioning to the Virginia retirement system, requiring living wages, engaging with organized labor, and improving our benefit packages. We've invested over $18.6 million towards our staff in this budget. To reduce costs and increase efficiency in City Hall, we've created a new role to drive process improvements and culture change throughout the organization, a Chief Transformation Officer. This new role will work with city departments to think through the user experience, to re-engineer processes, to redesign systems, and to recommend strategic investments in technology. Our investments extend into our communities as well. Our public schools and public safety personnel are absolutely critical to a healthy, thriving city. Accordingly, investments in RPS and public safety are among the largest components of this budget. Nearly 1/4 of the general fund is devoted to supporting Richmond Public Schools, and about 1/5 of the general fund is dedicated to public safety services like police, fire, and emergency operations. This budget increases RPS's general fund support by $9.6 million over last year, bringing our total investment to a record $248.9 million. While we asked each of our own departments to thoughtfully consider how to help close that initial budget gap, we've proudly funded RPS over and above last year's baseline. In fact, looking back over the last 10 years, we've increased our support for RPS by almost $100 million, $97.3 million to be exact. And these investments are working. Last year, RPS K-2 reading proficiency increased by 7%. The 3rd to 12th grade SOL scores rose faster in 4 subjects here than in the rest of Virginia. And over the last 2 years, we have added the most newly accredited schools in the Commonwealth. But believe me, I know that the need is far greater. And I will do everything I can to advocate for more at the state and the federal levels. I also want to thank RPS Superintendent Jason Cameras and his team for their partnership during the budget development process and their unwavering commitment to the essential work of educating our kids. In addition to our historic investment in education, we're also prioritizing the public safety needs of neighborhoods across the city. Over the past few years, our police department has been operating well below its targeted staffing levels. Across the country, we've seen more resignations, more retirements, fewer people entering the profession. And so we've got to address that balance in our growing city. In this budget, we are funding the Richmond Police Department for 60 additional sworn personnel above their current staffing level of 590 positions. And this maxes out the Police Academy's training capacity, which can reasonably graduate 2 academy classes per year, or about 50 to 60 police recruits. While we're adjusting the department's budget to accurately reflect the realistic number of positions they can fill, we are also committing to work with the chief now and in the future to adjust his position's strength as the need arises. We're also ensuring that our public safety personnel are competitively compensated and properly equipped to serve our communities. This budget increases compensation for our sworn personnel in the Richmond Police and Fire Departments by an average of 10.3%. That brings us above the regional average in compensation, and it keeps Richmond as an employer of choice for public safety personnel. Additionally, we have allocated funding for 51 new vehicles for police, fire, public works, and other departments, including 4 new fire trucks, 6 new refuse vehicles, and 16 new police vehicles. Having more police and firefighters doesn't do you any good if they can't arrive on the scene. And with this investment, we'll be replacing some vehicles that have been with us since the 1990s. These public safety investments are helping to protect families and communities across Richmond, and they are working. Last year, crime was down across all major categories, with homicides down 18% and violent crime overall down 5%. Another massive priority for our administration is addressing the housing affordability crisis. Every day, I hear from residents across the city about the skyrocketing costs of housing. From new college grads who want to stay in the city, to coworkers in City Hall, to residents at your community meetings. I've shared with many of you that one of my main motivations to run for office was the experience that my wife and I have had in Church Hill over the last 21 years. We initially moved into that community seeking the opportunity to build relationships with people across the racial and socioeconomic spectrum. And for much of the time that we've lived there, we have cherished the diverse community that we've been invited into. But in recent years, as development has come, as houses have been turned over, as rental rates have increased, as tax assessments have gone up, many of my low-income neighbors of color have not been able to stay in the community. And that's why we continue our strong commitment to affordable housing. Our housing investments for fiscal year 2026 are just shy of $50 million. Our plans include 23 affordable housing performance grants, which will support the creation of 3,316 affordable housing units, $10 million towards the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, and fully staffing the Department of Housing and Community Development. We're also allocating $7.9 million to the Creighton Court redevelopment project, which is transforming public housing and creating a new mixed-income community. And we've dedicated $1.3 million to our eviction diversion program, which provides critical support to families facing housing instability and helping to keep residents in their homes during financial hardships. For years, the city has provided financial support to dozens of community partner agencies through the non-departmental portion of our budget. That financial support has grown over time, reaching over $13 million in the current fiscal year. And in this fiscal climate, that level of funding is simply not sustainable. So this year, we have looked for opportunities to invest in programs that support our residents and provide services that the city can't, all while responsibly stewarding the taxpayer dollar. This year, we are funding almost $9.3 million of partner agency work in housing, human services, stabilizing families, and arts and culture programs. Moving forward over the next 2 years, our team will work to develop a more effective, more strategic, and more transparent approach to this funding. While we are making plans to adjust our approach to partner funding, we're still making targeted investments in programs that directly address our community's most pressing needs. Those include $500,000 for the Early Childhood Care and Education Trust Fund to make sure that quality child care and preschool is accessible for families under the 200% of the federal poverty line. $500,000 for the Richmond Resilience Initiative, which extends the guaranteed income programs on the heels of some very encouraging results from our pilot phase. $300,000 for the Health Equity Fund, fueling investments in our community-led organizations that are addressing the root causes of health disparities in our city. $250,000 for the Neighborhood Climate Resilience Grant Program that supports neighborhood-based planning and climate resilience projects. $300,000 for the Trauma Healing Response Network, which supports community-led organizations focusing on reducing the impact of gun violence in our city. And $520,000 for the Family Crisis Fund, providing greatly needed relief for housing, utilities, childcare, and other costs that often make the difference between keeping your housing or not. Our investments in the places, spaces, and built environment reflect our vision for a more connected and thriving Richmond. This budget commits $11 million to the Fall Line Trail, creating a vital north-south connection for pedestrians and cyclists. We're dedicating $21 million for the Safe and Complete Streets initiatives, including bike lanes, speed mitigation efforts, and paving. To be a thriving city, we must continue removing barriers to public transportation and support our residents who rely on these essential services to access jobs, healthcare, and education. And that's why I'm pleased to announce that my budget invests $9.4 million in GRTC, and I'm committed to continuing our support for fare-free bus services. This budget also reflects my commitment to increasing transportation planning and coordination. We've created a position for a transportation director who will be responsible for bringing together internal and external stakeholders to balance the engineering aspects of projects with the community's desire for accessible, walkable, and bike-friendly roadways. The revitalization of our important cultural spaces continues with a $10.1 million investment for a multi-use cultural heritage campus in Chaco and $6 million for Browns Island, both honoring our past while planning new, vibrant public spaces. While building for our future, we must also maintain the essential infrastructure systems that serve every Richmond resident every day. I communicate regularly with DPU's director, Dr. Morris, about operations at our water treatment plant and the ongoing work to modernize our aging infrastructure. To support these vital improvements and maintain reliable service, this budget does include previously scheduled modest increases to water, wastewater, and gas rates, and these were planned before January's water crisis. I understand that any increase affects household budgets, but these adjustments will help ensure that when you turn on your tap or you cut on your heat, that the service is there and it's working properly. It's worth noting that the majority of utility charges remain consumption-based, and our water utility maintains a lifeline rate that promotes both conservation and protects affordability for our most vulnerable residents. Our plans also include significant spending on planned improvements to our water treatment plant and our water distribution and transmission system. The 5-year capital improvement program has more than $60 million in planned project funding, including $38 million proposed for next year, which represents a significant acceleration in funding for water plant improvement projects. Another $207 million in the 5-year CIP is planned for water transmission and distribution system improvements. And that's in addition to a series of other planned investments to enhance wastewater treatment operations, strengthen our stormwater management, improve our gas utility system, and proactively upgrade the city's combined sewer system. And while this budget doesn't include direct funding for the people's budget, our participatory budgeting process, know that we are absolutely committed to the concept, and we're committed to finding dollars through our Department of Public Works allocations to support several of the built environment projects that are expected to come out of this ongoing participatory process. Richmonders, to build this budget in a thoughtful way, we worked with leaders across every city department and throughout our community to find creative ways to operate within our means, while also maintaining focus on our core priorities like education, public safety, affordable housing, and continuing to build City Hall into a high-performing organization. This balanced budget accomplishes that task without raising property taxes and also addressing the outsized needs of our city. Still, we all know that there's more that we must do. Our economic forecasts indicate that next year will be among the tightest in recent memory. With a planned and needed change in the city assessment calendar, we anticipate that fiscal year 27 will bring almost no revenue increases from property tax, which again is our largest local source of revenue. Despite this, we know that our needs will continue to increase. So, we must continue to pursue economic development opportunities like the Diamond District, City Center, and Southside investments. And we have to broaden our tax base and capitalize on the city's evolving growth. We must advocate for ongoing federal support and for our state to invest more robustly in its capital city, especially when it comes to our public schools. We must take a hard look at our operations and our services within city government, identify organizational and process improvements, both to stretch our resources and to make sure that we're using those resources as strategically and effectively as possible. And we must leverage our existing relationships with our regional neighbors and the private, philanthropic, and nonprofit sectors. We've got to use every tool in the toolbox, and even some that aren't, to make sure that we are running towards that vision, our shared vision. I believe that these strategic investments are the steps that we must take today towards a healthy and thriving city, one with abundant opportunity where everyone's rights are protected and no one is left behind. And I believe that despite the challenges that we're facing, despite the uncertainty surrounding us, that we can be optimistic about our city's future, because I know that each of you, council members, city staff in the audience, Richmonders watching from home, I know that each of you are dedicated to this place that you all and that I love deeply. Working together, we will not only face the challenges ahead of us, but we will truly thrive. President Newbill, Vice President Jordan, members of council, city leaders and staff, and to all Richmonders, thank you for your commitment to our city. It's an incredible honor to serve as your mayor, and I look forward to our continued work together. So thank you. And I now turn this budget over to you all. Thanks so much.
I want to say thank you, Mayor. And we look forward to our budget work sessions over the next several weeks that will allow us to get to final budget approval. With that, Madam Clerk, please address the list of legislation for introduction this afternoon. Ms. Trammell, we're going to introduce the legislation. We're not having discussion. Ms. Trammell? Madam Clerk, please.
Members, before you is the list of budget-related ordinances for introduction this afternoon, consisting of items numbered 1 through 7. The legislation on this list is hereby introduced as presented. A copy of the list is currently available for public inspection at the rear of the council chamber, and an electronic copy and copies of the legislation listed therein will be available on the city's website by 5 p.m. this evening.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I believe there is a motion regarding the budget-related ordinances.
Yes, Madam President, I move to suspend Rule 6 of the Council's Rules of Procedure for all budget-related ordinances introduced today so that those ordinances are not referred to or reviewed by a standing committee, but are instead reviewed during a budget review process developed by the Council and the Council Chief of Staff and heard during the budget public hearing scheduled for Monday, April 14th, 2025 at 6:00 p.m.
Second.
Council is now voting to suspend Rule 6 of Council's Rules of Procedure as stated. Mr. Breton?
Aye.
Ms. Gibson?
Yes.
Ms. Jones?
Aye.
Ms. Robertson?
Aye.
Ms. Trammell? Ms. Abubakar?
Aye.
Vice President Jordan?
Aye.
And President Newbill.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we will have a presentation by the interim council chief of staff to provide some a overview in terms of the path forward to finalization of our budget and our work sessions.
Thank you, Council. Greetings to everyone. Again, Matthew Slatz, Interim Chief of Staff. I'm here just to give a very, very brief review of what is ahead for all of us in the coming weeks. We have a lot to accomplish in a very short time frame, and there's a real need to stay on track. We are really seeing this as a sprint for the next few weeks, but we want to reinforce the work together with the Council Chief of Staff's office to support, advise, and channel communications, working with Council, the Mayor, and administration to achieve a successful process. So just a quick review of the general budget cycle. We began collecting priorities back last fall. We've been in communications with Council, the Mayor, administration, doing analysis. Today, we have the budget proposal coming forward, and then we will continue to move forward with review and analysis over the next few weeks with an adoption in early May. In terms of our more detailed timeline, again, introduction starts today. We will be reviewing the budget that we've just received in the coming days, and we'll be here to support and help you digest and react and walk through what it says and collaborating with administration to find alignment. On April 7th, we'll be having a operating budget presentation by the administration. That'll be an opportunity to have an in-depth public presentation and provide questions about that part of the budget. Moving forward, April 9th, we'll be starting to collect the changes that you want to see made in the budget. And again, we're seeking to find shared priorities and goals for the council and for the administration. April 14th will consist of a capital improvement presentation. Again, it'll be an in-depth presentation and opportunity for questions from you all, after which will be a public hearing to hear community feedback and reactions on the budget as a whole. April 16th, we'll have a work session considering the budget considerations, and I will be presenting amendments, both text and budget, and we will work together to refine those. April 21st is amendment finalization. Amendments need to be completed into the city attorney by that day, so they have the time and effort to draft the legislation. That will be our moment of pencils down. This will be a pretty much finalized budget. And then on the 28th, will be an official introduction of those amendments. And then we have a 2-week period of public reviewing for May 12th, and that will include the establishment of the Richmond government budget. It's being very quick. So just really quickly to review priorities, I wanted to always reinforce these are the council priorities, overall themes, safe and clean neighborhoods, strategic infrastructure, investment, strong futures for children, adults, and family, responsive and accountable innovative government, and planned growth, economic progress, and affordable housing. And there's a lot of alignment with the mayor's goals. So we've been working with you to gather these priorities and continue to do so, not only for the short term, but for the long term, thinking about how they might impact strategic planning and policy development. And again, the Chief of Staff's office here is to provide information to guide you through this process, and we're here to support you. And with that, I just want to say thank you. We're excited to facilitate council's vision, and we're committed to working with the mayor and administration to support a budget that achieves the vision that City Council and the community have for Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Slats. With that, members, there being no further business before this council, this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you all.